Hey everybody, Larry Powell here, your host for Studio HFL, where you truly do hear from legends. And of course, we've got Mary Elizabeth Bowden, a legend in the making, here with us this evening. Mary Elizabeth, good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, I want to start out, I got to make sure that I give Austin Custom Brass credit for sponsoring these interviews. Do you know Trent? Have you dealt with Austin Custom Brass yet?
Yes, I know Trent from Chosen Vale.
He's the best, isn't he?
He's great.
He's great. And don't you love all the videos he's been putting online, right? I mean, it's like every day there's a new trumpet, a new cornet, a new mouthpiece, a new toy, right? That he gets out there and he promos. And he's such a great player, right? So it's fun to hear him talk about it. And but of course, Trent and everybody at Austin Custom Brass will take care of you. The service, the products, all of that, just top shelf stuff. So Trent, thank you. Of course, you can go to austincustombrass.biz to find out more there. Of course, I want to tell you about some upcoming interviews. Of course, we had Alan Vizzuti last week, right? And May is just turning out to be a spectacular month. Of course, Mary's here this evening. Next week, we've got a guy who can barely make it out of the staff, right? This guy named Wayne Bergeron. Should be interesting. Of course, I'm being funny with that. I'm trying to be funny with that. And then the last week of May, we have Bijan Watson. I'm really looking forward to talking to him. I haven't met him yet, so it's all going to be fresh for me. But if you guys know more about him, hopefully you'll still enjoy that interview. Let's see. Oh, I've got to show a couple of shirts. I'm still trying to promo these shirts. Mary, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but the World Trumpet Force, right? The WTF, right? Born from 2020. Any idea what Venta Labis Magis means? This Latin phrase down here? Blow harder, right? If ever a trumpet community needed a phrase, a motto, that's it. Of course, you can get those shirts at studioHFL.com, which is a nice little segue into, if you want to get shirts, studioHFL.com, merchandise, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, studioHFL.com. And let's see. Oh, of course, Patreon. You're welcome to support Studio HFL by going to patreon.com/studioHFL and checking out the 4 tiers of support available there. So that takes care of the business side of things. And Mary, you want me to call you Mary or Mary Elizabeth?
Mary is fine. I do have a question of where the live stream is right now, because I'm multitasking and trying to share it on my page.
It should be on the Studio HFL YouTube channel and Facebook page. It should be going to both of those at the moment.
All right. I don't see it, but I'll have to look for it later then.
Are you looking on
the Facebook fan page?
Studio Facebook.
Yeah, Studio HFL.
So let me see about this. See if I can. I don't know if I can change this during. Oh, it looks like I set it up to go to my. It's going to my page. So yeah, if you want to, it's actually, everybody, it's going to my page, Larry Powell, not the Studio HFL fan page. That's my error, but I'm not sure I can change that midstream here. So, but I can still share that after the fact.
Okay.
Of course. Okay, so it's been a couple of years since we talked.
I think so. I can't believe that much time has passed, but I know this whole year has been a little bit strange with feeling time.
A little, right? I mean, I don't. It's still hard to remember what day of the week it is right now. Much less, we used to be able to mark orchestra season, right, with the orchestra finale or the grand opening concert or Christmas concert, and it's like none of that happened. So all of those milestones or markers throughout the season, weren't really there. But I will say you have done a remarkable job of the social media presence, right? You have certainly Instagram, Facebook. Where else are you? Are you a tweeter?
Yeah, I try to sometimes, but I'm not super connected in the Twitter world. It's mostly Instagram and Facebook.
But you had already been doing all of that before this, right? I mean, you were really engaged in that.
Yes, and when everything shut down, I wanted to stay connected with audiences and also stay inspired myself. And so right off the bat, I did the 100 days of practice, and I organized a few large virtual video projects and participated in other people's projects. And I also formed the Apex Trumpet Symposium with my husband and our friend Nathan Warner. And so we are doing our third session this summer, and that's been really successful and really fun to put together.
Yeah, can we start there with Apex?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So the genesis of this, was it because of the pandemic? Or was this something already in the works?
Well, Nathan called to just chat with me last August and mentioned the idea of we should form some kind of trumpet symposium or something someday. And I was like, let's just do it now. And if you give me an idea, I usually will make it happen. So right away, we started an LLC and we came up with a name and crafted our first 8-week course. And so we did that in the fall, and we had about 25 students. And then we did a 10-week one in the spring. And now we're having like a summer intensive week, which will be June 13th through 19th. We're about half full right now, so we still have some spots open, but we have some exciting guests, including Wynton Marsalis, Phil Smith, Tina Ting Helseth, and Selena Ott and Kyla Moskovich. So we're really excited about that week.
All virtual or any in-person students?
All virtual, and then we're talking about for next summer to find a way to meet in person somewhere in the States. So we're scouting out locations for that too.
Mm-hmm. So is this kind of like an ITG kind of event where you've got master classes and coaching or concerts or all of the above?
Well, I think when we do it in person, we want to keep that community aspect of it being pretty small. So I think, 20, 25 students is a good number to aim for. That's worked well for the seminar that we've had online so far. So everybody can get to know each other and it becomes this special community.
It's funny. You mentioned community. I think trumpet players are a pretty amazing community.
I think we have handled the pandemic really well. I have not seen any other instruments have so many interviews and festivals around the world. I've done dozens of master classes all around the world from this spot. And I think that's what I really love about the trumpet community is everyone's just, the excitement is still there despite 14 months of isolation.
And as stereotypical trumpet player can be, with the ego and the braggadocio and all of that. I mean, that hasn't really come out, right? It's been the support and everybody's cheering everybody on through all of this. I think that's kind of been one of those silver linings.
I think so. And I've gotten the opportunity to meet some players I didn't know before. I've gotten to interact with Tina Ting Helseth through a seminar that we did last summer, and to actually get to meet her and speak with her is just really cool. And plus all the other trumpet heavy hitters that we've had through Apex, we get to chat with these people and hear them teach, and people are more willing to do things online, which is great. You just get to connect with more people globally on a more regular basis.
So we're going to continue to talk about you, but the other two people in Apex, you mentioned, of course, Dave, and then the other person I'm not familiar with, Nathan.
Nathan Warner.
Tell me a little bit about them.
So David Datch is my husband. He is the trumpet professor at UNCSA and also plays in Santa Fe Opera, former member of the Marine Bands and Naples Philharmonic. And Nathan Warner is he has classical chops, and he's mostly a jazz player. He's a Bach artist and founding member of Sugartone Brass. And so it's a good mix because all three of us have different strengths. And it's just been really fun to craft curriculum. Nathan's one of our best friends. And so we usually hang out every summer. And so it's just been nice to be able to work with with him and just hang out and also have this business too.
Right, and finding everybody's strengths, right? So, I mean, what would be one of your strengths, or what would be Dave's that you guys all bring to this?
So my specialty is higher piccolo playing and also doing pu attacks and finding the sound for the day. And I love the Frankine book, Mary Frankine. And I also, the articulation and the low Clarks. And Dave has just a phenomenal technique, and his pedagogy is just excellent. And so he has all these different practice ideas. And Nathan has a lot of different ideas with, building strength. And he's a Bill Adam. He goes through the Bill Adam routine, and he also has these incredible lead chops. But then he can go and play piccolo too. So we learn from each other, and we present these different ideas in the classes. And I think it's just fun to share the different ideas with all of the participants.
So being married to another trumpet player, now I'm married to a violinist, right? I mean, there's a natural attraction, that seems like, between trumpet and violin, but two trumpets. I mean, do you ever get in arguments about, valve oil or mouthpiece size, or whose instrument is better? Bach is better than Yamaha is better than.
Well, luckily we are both Yamaha artists, and we learn from each other, and it's never competitive. We love playing duets, and we're both big trumpet nerds. So we both play entirely different equipment. But we listen to each other and work together. We also have our time apart to practice, so we don't drive each other too crazy. But I've started to bring him on some projects that I have, mainly because, well, not only do we love playing together, but we also want to be able to see each other, especially since I last saw you. I started a new position at full-time at Shenandoah Conservatory in Virginia, which is about 4 hours and 40-minute drive from here. And on top of that, I was still touring, and then COVID hit during after my first semester. So going back into the fall, we're crafting a plan of how to live in both places and travel between both places. Plus my touring will start again. So I tour with the string quartet, members of the Cassia Ensemble. And so I've brought him on some of the concerts, and we've just expanded the pieces to include two trumpets. And also we're commissioning a new concerto by Tyson Davis for two trumpets and string orchestra. And so he'll be on my next album, which will be my first orchestral album of new concertos for trumpet. And so he'll be on that one piece, and then we'll be able to premiere that piece the season after next. And so we're just always looking for ways to collaborate. So he can come on the road with me sometimes.
Okay, so you hit on all these things I was going to ask you about, right? So, I mean, this new album that you've got, but it's not just a new album, but this is specifically for new works, for commissioned works.
Yes, and the first work is the concerto that I commissioned. I think I told you it was in the works when I last talked to you, the new concerto by Vivian Fung. And I gave the premiere March 6th in 2020, right before everything shut down. And then, so all the subsequent performances have been canceled, but there's 8 more orchestras in the consortium. So they will happen. It's just going to be spread out over the next 2 to 3 seasons. So that's exciting. But I'm recording with Chicago Youth Symphony, which is, I'm from the Chicago suburbs, and the orchestra's phenomenal. They play at a professional level. And so I'm excited. I'm making those plans now. And it's just exciting to see things starting to come together for that project.
These commissions, do you give many parameters? Do you ask for certain things to either be in or not be in these works, or do you just give them go right?
Well, with Vivian, we met in person. We thought it was really important for such a massive project to meet each other and get to know each other a little bit. And I also played a little bit for her and showed her the different trumpets that I have. And so we ultimately decided to have the piece be focused on the E flat trumpet, flugelhorn, and then ending with the piccolo. And she really stretches the range on the piccolo. And so it's it highlights my strengths, but it also is challenging me a lot. So it's going to help. I see it really helping me grow as a player the more that I play it. And it's really fun and energetic and chaotic. There's a hip hop sounding section. It's just a really cool piece with a lot of colors, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Do you feel like she captured some of your personality in that?
I think she did, because she mentioned that she really liked my story of, I started my solo career when I was 27. So I felt like I was very behind. And I'm a Enneagram 8. And so I'm just this person that just takes challenges and conquers them, and can be a workaholic. But I'm very goal oriented, and I love a challenge, and I just love pushing the limits of what I can do. And and so I think she captured that kind of chaotic part of my personality, of just the internal struggle, but then always thriving and always taking a challenge. And if that makes sense. And so,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I never really thought about that. To say, okay, I want you to write in here like I can triple tongue like crazy, or I've got high chops, but to really think about trying to write to that personality, maybe you would have to spend a significant amount of time around that person, I think, to get to know, like, do they have a really dark sense of humor? Do they have a sense of humor at all? Right? Are they chaotic, like you kind of described yourself with that? So it's just kind of given me some insight, and maybe to what composers, what other things they might consider. Has anything come across your music stand that you're like, oh, I can't do that? we got to change that.
Yes, and there were a few measures here and there where I tried, and if it wasn't happening, or we would just modify it so it would sound like I could do it, but it didn't sound as flashy as it could. So we made some changes in regards to that. And then there were some measures that I thought, there's no way I can do this. And then after a couple of weeks, I was able to do it. So there was like some give and take with that.
Even talking to Alan last week, and of course, Alan Vizzuti has written some crazy, crazy stuff for the trumpet, right? The first time we ever saw Cascades, right? I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but you're like, I'll never play that. And then, after some time, you're like, I can play it. Well, maybe not up tempo, right? But it's like all this new stuff. It just adds not just to the repertoire, but I think it adds to what am I trying to get to? The level. Yeah, this level of that all. It's not like we can all just play the row parts on Dante and Allegro, right? It's not like we can all just play the hide. Now it's like people are trying to play Rextreme. People are trying to play. What was that piece that Sergei did? The really crazy Ad Absurdum. All of that stuff just pushes us to all get better and better. And of course, I will never actually step on stage and play any of that stuff because I'm smart. I know my limits, right? But no, bravo to you for embracing this. And I just think I've heard you play. Of course, you play beautifully. And I think I first heard you, I can't remember the video. You were outside. It's really lyrical.
Oh, is it the music video for Catherine McMichael's Totem Voices?
I don't remember,
but
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but really beautiful sound. So was that one of the earliest videos you had done?
That was a video that I did for my first album that I put together in 2014. And so that was not my first things that I was putting out in the world. I started my journey in my late 20s, and I started by posting some live performances on YouTube. And some of them were performances at the BAM Center where I studied with Jens Lindemann. And some of those videos are the ones that really sparked people's attention, especially the performance of Girl with the Flaxen Hair on piccolo. Mm-hmm. And I did a couple other videos too in that setting, and those really got a lot of attention. And then I started thinking of more ideas for new videos. Not only because it's great to have live video footage too, that's with a great camera, but capturing that live performance. But I also love mixing art forms. And so finding someone who can tell a story through some kind of like, I was thinking about like, let's make a classical music video to draw in new audiences. And that's what my friend Pablo Camacho from Uruguay has done with some of those more creative videos. And I think you're seeing that more and more now. I'm not unusual anymore. I see more and more really cool projects coming out with classical musicians making really cool, interesting videos to accompany a track on their album rather than just playing on a concert hall. So that's been really fun to watch.
Well, this is no longer just an audio experience, right? I mean, don't you think we're now forever in this kind of visceral? I mean, it's visual and aural at the same time.
I think so.
It's like those days of standing static at the front of the stage in front of the orchestra. Well, they're not over, but that's not all there is anymore.
Right, right. And I think you're seeing more and more artists connecting through social media platforms and posting more video, doing more interviews with people. And it's just, I think if you don't do that, you're going to be kind of left in the dust, so to speak.
Your experience with social media, you, like I said earlier, you were already into this before the pandemic. I'm trying to think, where in the world is this going to go? Right? I mean, because we're here now where it's like every day we're posting multiple times online. You think it'll continue this way, or do you think what could even evolve from this? How are we going to continue to stay fresh and new, trying to reach fans?
I think this is probably going to last a while. I'm sure it'll morph into something else because I'm generation, I don't know, maybe generation Y, whatever that one is in between Gen X and so, when I was in college, I was one of the first people to join Facebook because it was only for Ivy League schools. And so I remember like some of my Facebook memories from 2004 when it first started are very different than what I post now, because before it was just a site for your friends at school. And before that was MySpace, which was not a career thing. I posted some trumpet stuff on that, but it was mostly about just like chatting with people and having a fun page. And so it's really been interesting to watch this evolve throughout my timeline of being in school through being a professional, and just to see the changes. And I think as long as we stay flexible minded as the changes happen, that's how you stay relevant, learning the new platforms. Like I didn't know what I was doing when I started my Facebook fan page or YouTube or Instagram. Instagram just started mostly, I just was using it for the picture filters. And then I realized people were connecting with audiences. And then I started to learn the platform when a couple friends nagged me about not using any hashtags. And then I realized that I could connect with an audience there. And then now you see concert presenters on Instagram. It's become a really big thing. Will it be the same in 10 years? It'll probably be some kind of different platform, I imagine. Yeah, although I do love Instagram, but I loved MySpace too, which I don't think it exists anymore. I think you can kind of see broken parts of your old page, but I can't. I tried to sign in once because I was curious, and it's like no longer really there.
Well, I remember there was another site called Classmates, right? I don't know if it started at the same time, but you could connect at that time. You could find people you went to high school with, and of course, I think that probably got absorbed into that. But I hope I'm not going to step in this, but I think I've seen enough of your social media posts that I admire that you stay out of. You focus on you and your music, right? And I think that's brilliant. You don't want to alienate anybody. Like I take no social or political positions on anything. I have my opinions, but like if I want to grow an audience for Studio HFL, all they want to hear is my interview with you, right? They don't want to know my position on vanilla or chocolate or Rocky Road, and I like Rocky Road, so there's my position on that. So, but I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble, right? It's like let's reach out and try to build a fan base, and I mean people really are just interested in the music, right? I hope.
Yeah, and I do share some ideas that I have that I feel very strongly about. And I've definitely lost some fans because of it. But I'm really just posting. I use the platforms to post what I want. I'm really not, I don't feel like I'm censoring myself. I'm being myself. I post funny things, this Reface app, and I post some real things on the stories. And I feel like that draws the audience too, to get to know me as a person. And I'm okay with sharing some things. And of course, everybody loves Duke, my cat. Yeah, so I'll definitely share some things that I feel that are really important to stand up for certain things. But it's not like I don't do that like every single day. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I did step in it because I apparently missed some of those posts. So I find it interesting too. Sometimes I'll try to really plan what I'm going to put out on social media, and it'll get a handful of likes. And then I posted a picture of me and my mom, for Mother's Day. And it's like everybody in the world likes it. It's like, wait a second, but I think that's what people really want to see. They like that human connection, right? And, of course, I thought my mom looked pretty good in that. So maybe they were liking it because of her. But so albums, you say you've got this one coming up with orchestra, but obviously this is not your first album. You mentioned the one you did back in 2014.
Yes. And
go ahead. What else is in there?
Well, I have two more. I have my second solo album, which was released in 2019. And throughout the pandemic, that one was nominated for 3 Opus Classic Awards, which I was surprised because I forgot my publicist had sent in my materials. So that was really cool to be even considered for that. And then I also have Seraph Brass's debut album we released in 2018. So 4 albums total in the works.
It's not like you're not busy, and then you bring up Seraph Brass again. It's like, oh yeah, so there's this whole other aspect. And yeah, you guys just started touring again. It was one of the Dakotas you were in just a week or two ago, right?
We were in Minot, North Dakota. That was our comeback concert.
And how'd it go?
It was great. It was really fun. I definitely had a higher heart rate on stage, but it was really nice to be there for a live audience, and it was nice to talk to them. And we just had a lot of fun. It was really fun to be together as a group again, and just hanging out and actually getting to play together as a group rather than a virtual video or a virtual masterclass, which is what we've been doing essentially for the past year.
Right. Okay, so if somebody says Canadian brass, you know enough about them to say, okay, they're this, or Empire Brass is this, or Monozzle is this. How would you describe Seraph?
Well, our typical concert will have a handful of classical arrangements of some of our favorite pieces. And then mixed in that, we have new works, some by some commissions that we've done by underrepresented composers, mostly women composers. And depending on the series that books us, it might be more popular things, or it might be a mix of some more serious works. So I did not want to have the group just do one thing, like, oh, we're only going to do new music, or we're only going to do arrangements. I really wanted it to be a mix. And that's how I handle my own recital programs as well. And so it's a really nice balance because we just get to mix everything together in one show, which I think is really interesting for an audience, and also keeps us really I don't know, we never get bored. There's always it's always a lot of fun to play a show, and sometimes we each do a solo feature with the group, and we'll choose a piece and have it arranged. So it's fun, it's really creative, and right now we're in midst of a commission for a piece by Catherine Salfelder. She's writing a piece for us with wind ensemble and an orchestra version. So the premiere of that will be in November. So we're excited. I haven't seen any drafts yet, so I'm excited to see what that's going to shape up like.
I've not seen one of your performances yet. Is there a comedy, or do you guys stay on stage? Do you bridge every tune? Does somebody come up and talk, or what's the format for the group?
So as the years go on, we're memorizing more and more tunes. So we have a handful of them memorized. We also change we'll change setup pretty frequently, and it's really easy now because we have our own stands with iPads on them for the stuff that's not memorized, and so that makes moving around the stage a lot easier. And then in between that, everybody talks. So the audience gets to hear from all of us, and I think they appreciate that. They like getting to know each of us and our personalities, and so everyone's gotten really comfortable with speaking and with performing and memorizing. So I think the show stays interesting. The trumpets, we both have like 6 trumpets with us. I have like my hoard of trumpets next to me.
Right.
And it just because I like to utilize as many colors as possible in my solo shows and with Seraph Brass. I love switching instruments.
I love that the fourth wall is becoming almost non-existent, right? I think the audiences like that we can engage them. Would walk out, we look them in the eye right at the beginning, right? It's not just the bow and okay, you hang out there and applaud when I'm done, right? I love that. To me, it makes it so much more comfortable to perform. And I think you're nodding. I mean, you agree with that.
If I had to do a performance and someone said, don't talk in between pieces, I would feel very strange. And that's completely different than, when I went to school, we just played our pieces, like my recital at Curtis and Yale. I just played the program and I didn't speak at all because I didn't know that you could, you know what I mean? And then once I started touring, it was like, oh, I need to talk to the audience. And so at first I had notes and things and I would want to just talk about the history of the piece. And now that I've done this for a decade, I'll never use a sheet of paper again. And I'll talk about the piece if it's interesting story. I know when I talked to the audience in North Dakota, I told them about how my family used to go on vacation every summer in our van, and we would drive across the United States. And so every time, I'm driving through that area, I've been to North Dakota many times. We've gone to the Badlands, we've driven through, and so it's very nostalgic, and it feels like home to me. So, I improvise when I talk to an audience now, and I'll usually find out something about the town and relate it to the story that we're telling on stage. And we play this piece by Catherine McMichael called Virgo, and it's really peaceful and beautiful. And before the concert, we were reading the story about the hall that we were playing in. It was dedicated to this woman named Ann Nelson, and she passed away in 9/11, and she was only 35 years old. And she had this and then so Gene is the other trumpeter, was doing all this research on her just because she was curious about who is this woman. And so in the concert, she just improvised and told the audience that she was really moved by the story because we were. And she's like, for those of you who don't know, she told this really cool story about her that years later, after she passed away, her parents finally opened her computer and found this list of, she had started a list of 100 things she wanted to do before she died. So it was just like her parents got to see that. And so we dedicated the piece to her, and it just made it so much more special.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Mary, I'm so sorry. This Spectrum, I don't know if you're on Spectrum or what, but oh my goodness. What a time for it to go down. So it said that everything was still running when everything came back on. So I'm going to have to edit out a few minutes of dead space. Okay. My goodness. We were solving world hunger, I think.
Yeah, I was talking about the My Not North Dakota concert, but I'm not sure when you froze because I was talking for a little bit.
So I think maybe the last thing I remember was you said you and your family were driving through. You had great memories of driving through the Badlands and other places there.
Yeah, and I remember what I was going to say now. So for one of the pieces that we play, which is really beautiful, it's a movement of a piece that Catherine McMichael wrote for us called Virgo. When Jean was talking to the audience, she was telling the story about the concert hall. The concert hall in Minot is dedicated to this woman named Ann Nelson, who passed away in 9/11. And she was only 35, and she was a very motivated young woman. And her parents still honor her every day, and they set up a lot of foundations in her name. And years after she passed away, probably 4 or 5 years, they found her computer, and they found this list of 100 things that she wanted to do before she passed away. And so that's really led the parents to, just to feel connected to her again, but then also, have foundations in her name based off of these things that she wanted to do. But the things that she wanted to do weren't all career driven or travel. They were like, be kind, be a good friend, things like that. And so we dedicated the piece to her. And so it's just fun to talk to the audience and make it personal if you can, if you feel a connection to the town in the short time that you have there, rather than just talking about a history of a piece.
Okay, so on a much shallower note, I used to tour with a group, and wherever we would go, we would try to find the mom and pop barbecue place, and then mention that. Of course, the food was always great, but then we would mention that at the show, right? Of course, that connection, right? So it's not as deep as what you're talking about, but you're right. I mean, anytime you can make a connection, you should do it. Because then they feel like, oh my gosh, they came just to perform for me. So after not being together for how long, I'm sure you guys were all thrilled to share the stage again.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. We did our typical 5 hours of rehearsal the day before, and then dress rehearsal and play the show. And yeah, it feels more vibrant with some time off. We were touring a lot in January and February of 2020. We were on the road a lot, and yeah, it's great to be back. And of course, I felt much more adrenaline on stage, but yeah, it was a nice comeback concert. So we're excited to return in the fall with more concerts.
I want to go back to the fourth wall thing for just a second. Of course, you can break that down with the Seraph Brass and maybe some solo recitals. But what happens when you step on stage with an orchestra? Do you feel like you're limited there, or do you have conversations with the music director and say, "I'm going to do this"?
That definitely doesn't feel as personal to me. So I really try to dive into the music making. Of course, when I'm playing a show in any way, that's the main priority. And I think with a concerto where it's more formal and you're not speaking to an audience before, most of the time you're just coming out and playing the concerto. The time to connect with the audience is during the intermission and after the show. And that's the case for any concert as well. It's a given, and so, that personal connection during a concerto, I just commit to the music, and I know that I'm going to meet the people after. And so it's a little bit of a different experience.
So what's your fan base like? Are they bringing T-shirts and albums to sign, or they just want to get a picture with you? Or, what's that like?
I think people they still like to buy physical CDs. I think people like that, and they like the signature just to have like a memento. With Seraph Brass, we do more of the merch. Like we have T-shirts, and now we just ordered some bags. So it seems like the brass quintet thing, people love to buy more things. Like having like the T-shirt is a pretty typical thing for a touring brass quintet. But yeah, I'm still always amazed about how many people really love having the physical CD, despite how there's so many streaming services now. But people still buy CDs.
But what about, they want to meet you? So what is? Are they little kids, big kids? Grown? Who's coming to see you and like, oh, Mary, I love you so much.
It's a mixture of people of all ages. There's people who love the trumpet who are any age. There's young students who play the trumpets, and then there's younger women who are fans, which is really cool to see. And it's kind of a wide mix. It's nice just to meet the people in the town, and some people will drive from a few hours away, and which is really endearing. My parents are two of those people, actually. If I have a concert within anywhere of 6 to 10 hours of driving, like my parents will be like, "Oh yeah, we'll be there," right. And they just drive. Right. So it's.
Yeah, you got to love parents, right? And if that one person is the applauding out there, you're like, "Thanks, Mom." right? When Allison and Tina first started their videos, I was so grateful because, and then you and Seraph and so many other female trumpet players came along, because it was like, oh my gosh, finally, because my studio was not always all male, right? And so it's like you can always point them to the old white guy playing trumpet, but now it's like, oh, and there's this one I've enjoyed sending my students to, Poppy Daniels. She's like this British jazz trumpet player. I don't know if do you know who I'm talking about?
Yep, I follow her.
Yeah, I mean
Great.
she's great, right? And it's like you've got this wide range and everybody's so talented. I'm just so grateful that there's now a diversity, right? I mean, it's truly a diverse platform. You can send people out and listen, and you can get great music and be inspired by anybody and everybody.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's really important to me with Apex Trumpet Symposium is making sure that we have equal playing field with that. Our symposium this summer is 50% women. It's half and half, which is really great. That's how it should be. It shouldn't just be a couple of women here and there. That's not enough.
This year at UND, because of things, all the students had to do, we were told to give them unaccompanied pieces because they weren't going to have an accompanist to work with. So, we have this handful of rep. And then I thought, no, there's got to be some composers of color. Hey, maybe I just coined a term, right? Not just people of color, composers of color. So I find Dolph Stork was the first name that came to mind, right? He wrote this really cool, I can't remember the name of it. It's a fanfare piece. And so I started putting all this stuff in front of my students. It's like, yeah, this is really cool. And we're finally getting to, I think the word you used earlier was underrepresented, right? And so again, really great music, but why hasn't this been played until now? It's like maybe well, not the excuse, the instance to use it hasn't come until now. But I'm glad we've got it, because all of a sudden now, our repertoire is just, I feel like it's exploded, what we've got to play. Yeah, there's my 2 cents on that. I can edit that out a little bit later. But what about you at Shenandoah? How did you handle the studio? By the way, congrats. I think you told me you went from 8 to 18 or 6 to 18 students.
Yes. And I didn't know what to expect. I started last fall, and they were 8 in the fall and then 6 in the spring. And with recruitment, it was interesting because I didn't know what to expect. This year during my whole second year, we've had 8 total. And so when I was recruiting, not only did I have Apex, but also Seraph Brass did a summer seminar. And we've been doing tons of master classes around the world. And so I'm meeting students through that platform as well as Apex. And I've done a ton of trades with other professors throughout the year. I have had 21 guest artists virtually this year. I just threw myself in at full force, and I gave students free lessons in the fall to get to know them. And yeah, the numbers have exploded, and I'm super excited to see where the studio is going to go. We have so many wonderful players joining us in the fall. So I'm just really excited I was told it would take me years to do this, and I did it in 1 year, a year and a half or so.
So how does that compare to other studios?
I think there's a good amount of trombones. Trombones might be close to 18. They might be more like 15. So I think trumpet and trombone are maybe the largest studios. I have to check the numbers for the others, but I think it's been a really good recruitment year overall for Shenandoah. The faculty are wonderful, and it's a great community. And I think people are starting to see that because of the professors that they've hired are really good at networking and social media and things like that. And so the world's getting to see the conservatory more. And I've worked really hard this year to put the school out there. I started the Instagram social media account for the trumpet studio. I'm not as active on that as I should be, but I try to share things and then tag it through my page, and then my followers will follow that school and be like, oh, I didn't know you were teaching. Can I take a lesson and see what the school is about? So I love teaching. It's great, and it's a really great way to balance having a solo career. And most soloists are teachers, and I think I feel like it's my duty to teach. And when I was 18, I said I'm never teaching. I hate it because I never taught before. And throughout the years, just gaining experience. When I first graduated from graduate school and I was on the orchestral path, I was in Richmond playing in Richmond Symphony, and Rex Richardson was one of my first friends in town, and he needed an adjunct trumpet teacher. So he gave me my first opportunity, knowing I had no experience, but he said that was how he got his first experience. And he believed in me that I could figure it out, and I did, and then grew to really love it through that experience at teaching at VCU, and then just kept doing master classes. And then Shenandoah approached me to audition. I was not looking for a full-time job on top of being a full-time touring artist. Mm-hmm. And thought about it, took the audition and got it, and did not expect to get it, or I didn't expect anything. I kind of just did it for fun and got the job offer, and then decided to try it out. Let's try out two full-time jobs, because why not?
I love teaching too, and for selfish reasons also, right? Because don't you feel like it makes you a better, everything?
Definitely. I learned so much through my students, and they inspire me, and I'm so proud of them. And it's a wonderful community to be a part of, to share the students' knowledge that I've learned through the years. And I learn a lot about myself too, with problem solving and being able to connect with them.
Do you find, and I remember who you told me you studied with, but you can talk about that. But do you find that their teaching still comes through in the way you teach?
I think so. I think I've definitely found my own way of teaching, but I definitely am inspired by watching other teachers. Like through Apex this year, watching all of these wonderful performers teach, like Sergei Nikaryakov and Pacho Flores, Tom Hooten. I take ideas from them, and I'm going to try that. I like that. I'm going to share that with the students more, and I think that's how we become better teachers, is by being curious, staying curious, and being life learners from each other. And that's another aspect of the trumpet community that I really, really love. And of course, like my early years of studying, those teachers, I think, really gave me great building blocks for how I teach as well, with just, I'm really much into finding the sound at the beginning of the day and doing your fundamentals and practicing smartly and slowly, and being, and then over the years you develop those ideas. And I think I was talking about this with one of my students, because one of my students she really learns best by just hearing me demonstrate, and then she can get it right away. And that's how I learn best, is by, if I have a lesson with Jens Lindemann. I remember when I was learning the Brandenburg Concerto No. 2, I was having trouble getting the range a little higher to hit the high A's. And I had a 5-minute lesson with him and heard him do it, and then I could do it. And I was just like, how does that work? I don't know. Right. But when you're a teacher, you can't just use your pathway. You have to learn other pathways. Every student needs something very different. And so it's been fun to discover the different pathways. Not everybody learns the same way, because if I just taught the way that I learned, it wouldn't work for everybody. Everybody's different and needs a different set of everything.
What were some struggles you had along the way? Because I know my path has been rocky. I've taught embouchure changes, all kinds of downstream issues. What kind of things have you had to overcome?
I think, when I was first deciding that I wanted to do solo playing, I didn't feel super confident. So I had to build that confidence by just performing more and switching equipment. And I studied with a lot of people, got my butt kicked. And then my playing really started to take off. And And I think the biggest struggle for me was right when I was really, really making some headway. I was too old to do most competitions, so that was not really a path for me. But there was one left, Ellsworth Smith, that I made the live round for. And I worked so hard that summer. I worked my butt off and I was sounding really great and really making some new discoveries in my playing. And I was hit in the face not only once, but twice that summer. And the second accident was I was just walking to my car late at night in Santa Fe visiting Dave, and somebody threw a Frisbee. And I wasn't playing Frisbee. I was just trying to walk to my car. And I stopped and said hi to a friend. It bounced off her head and it went right here. It like, bam. And my face swelled up immediately. Dave watched it happen in slow motion, and it was just, and I still remember that moment. And I know other people have experienced far worse accidents, car accidents and things like that. And so this is just like a Frisbee, like really hard hit in the face. And I still have like this scar that I can feel here. And that was back in 2012. And so I had to change the way that I played. And at that time I had just signed with management. And I just got my first bigger concerto offer with a real paycheck. And, and I was like, oh, I have to figure out how to play. This is like, it was a few months away, but my playing changed and I had to really build these muscles, which I didn't really have before. I was always like a kind of a natural player, but it would always had its limitations, so I had to really revamp things and learn how to play in a more efficient way. And I think it was a blessing in disguise because it just made me better. My range got better. Everything got better when I had to figure out this problem. So it made me problem solve, and it made me a better teacher. Having to learn how to deal with an external injury. Most of us have to deal with that. And if we don't, I know players who have never had an issue, they get older. Well, your body changes when you get older. And so now I don't feel so freaked out about things because I know that I can overcome things and figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I've had some major issues this past year, which people have heard in previous interviews. But, I look at that as, okay, at least now I know how to get through that. And now I can help a student that may have to come through that, make that journey later on. So, it's like if our life was completely smooth and easy, it's like how effective of a teacher could we really be, right? Because you can't empathize. Right? I mean, you would probably have preferred not to get hit in the face with a Frisbee, right? But again, that whole silver lining or lemonade out of lemons thing is like, okay, well, here's what I'm going to tell a student that's going to endure the same thing.
Definitely. Yeah. I think we learn a lot through just experiences, and that's how we become stronger. And, I'm watching the Last Dance again on Netflix, the Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan documentary.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in that era, so it's like very nostalgic for me. But like Jordan missed tons of shots and had lots of failures. It took him a long time to build up that team, and it wasn't an easy journey. But with the amount of perseverance and just staying super goal oriented, of course, he's amazing too. But you know what I mean? It's just I love that documentary. I'll probably watch it 5 more times.
Yeah, but I mean, there are so many parallels between the sports and the arts, and with perseverance. And of course, if you look at a batter's batting percentage versus a soloist's percentage, if we batted 267, nobody would hire us, right? If we only hit that percentage of our notes. So, I mean, we can't make that equation, but there are so many things, just the training, the focus, right? And of course, it's not like we're up against an orchestra or a conductor, although we might feel like it sometimes, right? The battle. We've not got somebody trying to throw a fastball past us, is what I'm getting at. We're not competing. I love the sports mentality. Of course, that goes all the way back to what was the tennis book years ago that people were Inner Game of Tennis. Right? That was one of the first sports analogies I remember, or sports things being integrated into teaching. But how about some new repertoire that you're looking maybe you've talked about the commissions, but are you looking at even standard repertoire that you're trying to weave into performances?
Yeah, a friend of mine who I went to Curtis with, Bill Rowson, wrote a great trumpet sonata that doesn't really get played. He wrote it. He actually wrote it about 10 years ago. It seems like yesterday. And so I recorded that for the ITG recital that Dave and we have a live recital presentation that we're presenting at ITG, and we each played a solo piece. And so I programmed that again. I definitely want to resurrect. There's another piece that I commissioned by my friend Joseph Hallman, that I want to put back in the mix of things when I start touring again. It's a really great piece, sonata for trumpet and piano. And I also am commissioning 3 unaccompanied works, just for fun. One's by Rena Esmail, and I want to really get that worked up and memorized so I can play it at master classes. And there's a couple other pieces in the works as well. So that's, and then as far as like other new things, I just played my first solo recital back, and it wasn't like a super fancy engagement. It was through the Richmond Symphony, which I've kept that per service position forever, because I only have to do like 2 weeks a year or something like that to keep it. And so I played a recital for them, and it was in a coffee shop. And so it was lots of people walking by me and everything. But I found these really great songs by Amy Beach, based on poems by Browning, which are beautiful. And now I've been listening to a ton of Amy Beach vocal music, and there's so many things that are going to work really great for on the trumpet. Mm-hmm. And Florence Price too. I love vocal music on recitals, and so I think I'm going to find a lot of new things to pick and choose from for when I start doing some solo recitals again.
Wasn't Florence Price? Maybe I'm thinking the wrong. She was she couldn't sing. Maybe this is not the same person. There's right. She was this benefactor way back at the beginning of the 20th century.
No, I think you're no. She's the African American composer. Oh. Her symphony is one of her. I think she was the first Black woman composer to have her work performed by a symphony orchestra.
Okay, yeah, I was way off. Thank you for clarifying that, though. That's I'm having a senior moment. I'm getting closer to that age where that's a real thing. You mentioned memorization. Is that a goal for you to be able to step on stage anywhere and just be free of that music stand?
Yeah, I try to. I think it definitely helps ingrain the music and feel more connected to everything. But if it's a crazy piece like a new work like Vivian's concerto, the iPad is giving me a lot of flexibility because it's not so obstructive like a music stand. Mm-hmm. You can have it there and it's like not that noticeable. I noticed that Tina Ting-Helseth uses it a lot. Mm-hmm. And you barely notice it. So that, and then also I have not great eyesight when there's like bright lights shining at me. So, or if it's too darkly lit. And so before I used my iPad, if I was reading music, it was often a problem. So I would end up memorizing half of it anyway. But the iPad, I can see clearly all the time, which is really nice because it's well lit. I can have the music a little bit bigger. It's really great.
Well, and of course, aside from tonight, technology, my iPad's not failed me in a performance yet, although I know where the hard copy is, right? Just in case. But yeah, I love the iPad. I love being able to, I don't have to carry a giant bag with me to school, right? With everything in it. The only problem I've encountered on stage is the foot pedal, right? It's sometimes it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, I don't use the foot pedal. I either work out the page turns or I use this app called Blackbinder. It's a pretty new app, but we have a relationship with them with Seraph Brass, so they have helped us make our music, tweaking the parts and stuff for us. So they've helped me with some solo pieces too. So you just you input the tempos, you press start, and then it scrolls. And then of course, while you're playing, if it happens to be going too fast or slow, you can move the music with your hand as well. And then, so that's been really nice because I don't want to have to carry around another piece of equipment.
Right. Um, well, I want to say thanks again for joining, and I want to apologize again for the tech issues. I that's so frustrating. But it's great to see you again. I know we're all waiting for that day we can all get together and share a cup of coffee and then shake hands if that's ever going to be a thing again, right? Um, but it's great to see you. It's nice to know that things are really going full motion. Well, it might feel like full motion, forward motion for you. Um, and of course, social media, you're going to have it out there when all these performances, right? What's a website for Seraph Brass?
It's pretty easy to find, seraphbrass.com, and my solo one is marybowden.com. But easiest way to keep in touch is on Instagram, Mary TRPT and Seraph Brass.
Mary Trumpet, right? So this has been great. Thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. And yeah, hang on one second. I'll sign off here. And again, thanks to Austin Custom Brass for sponsoring tonight's interview. Of course, next week, Wayne Bergeron, and that's May 18th, and the May 25th is Bijan Watson. That'll wrap up the month of May. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll see you next time.